There we go. Hey everybody, my name's George. I'm an addict. Wow, it's an honor to be here on Friday night, clean. I was trying to figure out, I guess I met Ray about 7 years ago. I've been clean a little over 11 years. And I was trying to think of all the places that I know Ray from, because I guess the first place that I saw him was in a Georgia Regional Convention. We've been to, I know, 2 world conventions at the same time. As I continue to do service work around, and especially in the region, I see Ray more and more. I became program chair for this convention back in June, I guess, and I asked Ray for a CD, and I listened to it, and I really felt like he was the one. Typically, Friday night is always a Georgia regional speaker, and for me, in this convention, it needs to be somebody who does service. Ray does a lot of service. You do a lot of service for the fellowship. I've always appreciated the fact that every time I see you, you take time out of your day to hug my neck, say hello. And, I strive to be like you, Ray. You should hear a clear message of recovery and Narcotics Anonymous and integrity. I give you Ray Lewis.
My name's Ray, and I'm an addict. I'm one of those grateful recovering addicts. I thank God for NA. I thank NA for bringing me back to my God. Step 2 in the basic text is the process exactly as it happened for me. And when I got here with no belief in God, there were people here who were happy to be here, and they kept telling me, if you want what we got, you got to do what we do. That's right. I'm going to apologize now if I offend anybody, but I'm going to tell my story. I also apologize because I have a cold that was not in the plan. And I don't know what's going to come up. I have a lot of things I want to say, but I can't come here with notes. My sponsor would not permit that. So I will speak from the heart. What comes up, comes out. Yes, sir. I thank the committee for letting me participate in my recovery, because this is on my bucket list. I come from a little town north of here called New York. I come from a functional Christian home. They did have some issues, let me not say that. But they were loving and they were caring. The problem was, and always has been, me. I was the little fat kid. And if you've ever been a fat kid, you know you can't fight everybody, and you learn how to stuff those feelings. There were certain things that I could do and do well. So if I could get you on the handball court, you were mine. And I was never the last one chosen for basketball, because I developed a shot from the top of the key. Yes, sir. I ain't running under that basket. My mama didn't raise no fools. So there were some things I played hard. There were some people that disrespected me, and I fought hard. And most days I lost. And I remember sitting at the dinner table, and my father would look at me and he'd laugh. And he'd say, "Did you get the number of that truck that hit your face?" But the next day I'd fight again. You know, I don't remember the first time I used. I can tell you I used in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And one of my earliest memories is going to the local bar with my father. My brother and I, and they sat us at the end of the bar, and the barmaids pinched our cheeks and fed us pretzels and peanuts and ginger ale, and I was loving it because I was hanging out with my dad. My dad was a baseball fanatic, and at home he'd sit there and watch the game, and he'd drink his beer, and he'd set it down on the floor. I'd grab the can, and I'd take a sip, and my brother would take a sip. We drank beer. Also, my father, we had a grape arbor in the back of the house, and he would make wine. And I would taste it throughout the process. I knew when it was ready. So, you know, my story, to me, is boring. So I'm going to try to get past how it was real quick, because I love this recovery journey. Somewhere around 12, somebody suggested that we get high. And then my father had this well-stocked bar, and I got me a mason jar, took a little out of every bottle, and I went back to the woods. We were in the woods, and yes, there were woods in New York City. And we drank. Now, I don't remember what happened after that night. I just knew it was 31 years later that I stopped. And there's not a lot of drama in my story. No holdups, no jail, no penitentiary, just suffering. Mine. Fridays, going to high school, Fridays was wine day. We'd chip in, get our little bottle, we'd drink. And usually something would happen after that. They'd want to act out. And my father had laid it on my heart. He used to say, if you go to jail, you better have somebody to get you out, because I ain't coming. So when the crew would act out, I'd start running. And I'd be on the other side by the time they do whatever it is they do. I'm headed home. So I managed to skip all of that juvenile delinquent stuff. Go through high school. When I got out of high school, all my friends were gone. So I went to my parents. I said, I want to join the service. I want you to sign the papers, because I wasn't old enough. And at first they were reluctant. But I'm good at persuading people to get what I want. So either you sign them now, or when I get 18, I'm out of here. So they signed them, and I left. Now, we know the stories about the military, and military is all about becoming a man, and men drink, and I hug that commode, and I'll never do that again, and I wouldn't until the next weekend. I wasn't old enough to buy, but I could get plastic just like the rest of them. Then they sent me overseas. I was stationed in Maine, and it was ugly. Snow, trees, no party. Because that's what I was about, the party. See, somewhere, right after I had that first one, I discovered my second drug of choice, which was women. And I could only deal with the women if I had the first drug. So I just want to get a couple going to start the party. I need to go from Clark Kent to Superman. Now, without a substance, I'm in the corner, in the back, in the dark. I ain't coming out. But after a couple, oh baby, I'm the one on the table with the lampshade on his head talking about party. And in New York, wintertime, they always have a room for the coats. So somewhere towards the middle of the party, that's where I end up, in the room with the coats. Until I started getting sick, and then they wouldn't let me go in the room with the coats anymore. So there's still people that talk about me sitting on the balcony of some high-rise, passed out, sub-zero weather. I must have had a good time because I didn't stop. They had no clue about the progression of this disease because I just want one or two to get the party started. I always end up passed out. So after I'm in the military, they send me overseas and I'm in one of my stupors and I ask somebody for a cigarette. I happen to be in Thailand and they handed me one. Oh, I know what that is. And I hear my mother's voice. Boy, you smoke that stuff, you're going to be an addict. No, she didn't say that. She said a junkie. And she don't know what she's talking about. Give it here. New drug of choice. And by the time I got out of the military, I was an expert. I could smoke this stuff and tell you where it was grown at. And I was the big man on the block for about 2 weeks. But the disease continues to progress. So as I become wide open, I'm wide open. Try this, take this. Yeah. I remember we had a party one night and I danced all night long. And when I woke up the next morning, I could not walk. But we had a good time, I think. So, to move along, I got out of the service. I got the dream job that I was always wanted. Bought me a new car. And then I met her. She was about 6 foot tall. I'm 5'8". She was almost a model. She was trying to break into modeling. Good-looking woman. And of course, the next right thing is that we get married. Oh, that's a painful memory today too. That woman tore me a new one, you know? And then we had a couple of kids, and then she ran away with my best friend and my dope man. Man, that was devastating because you know it's hard to find a good dope man. So I sit there, you know, the kids are gone, she's gone, you play that sad music, you know how we do. And that went on for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, no, let's get this party started. And we started again. Time goes on, the disease progresses. I find out where they are, I take them to court, I get visitation. Oh man. Judge says, bring all your financials in. He looks at my paperwork, he says, you spend more than you make. That's the American way, Your Honor. Oh, she was highly upset because I think she had visions of getting thousands of dollars and it wasn't happening. So she dropped the kids off for, it was a Memorial Day weekend, and she never came back. So I tell people what I'm thinking about doing, and on, you can't do that. But I go to court and I get custody. So my life changes. I no longer party. I no longer go down those alleys and put my money in them holes in the wall. I'm a responsible, productive member of society, and I'm taking care of these kids. Now, for a minute, the kids were dressed. I had 2 cars, house. I was cooking and cleaning and washing and doing all them things, and I was miserable. I go to a funeral. And I see all my old playmates. So when I got to Narcotics Anonymous and they told me about old playmates, I knew immediately. So I saw my old playmate, my old girlfriend, and I know she got a drug problem. Really, man. That's why we ain't together. But we start to talk. I go by and I visit her. She's out of work because she's got a drug problem. So she lives upstairs. The dope man is downstairs in the doorway selling. One day, you know how we do. She made me angry. So on the way out, I said, "Give me 2." Now, another thing that I learned when I got to Narcotics, they talked about old playthings. Because I had all the paraphernalia. It had been sitting on my dresser for years. Because I had tried to do this once before and it didn't work. I was not the chemist and I was messing up my product. But now it's instant. You know I'm getting to the end. So she saw me one time purchase, and she was very upset because I wasn't sharing. And I began to share, and we sit around playing cards and passing the paraphernalia, and then we start to argue. You got it too long, you're burning, you're doing that. So she lost her apartment. They put her out. That happens when you don't pay the rent. So I move her in with me. 2 addicts, 3 kids, 1 job. So in this time when I first got the kids up until now, I'm semi-abstinent. I used to say I was abstinent, but there's always the legal drug alcohol. And then if you came by and you had something, I would do what you had. But in that time period, I had the 2 cars, I had a bank account, I had credit cards. And then after she moved in, bank account went down, credit card got maxed out. I sent her on a run with one of my cars. That car never, she brought it back, but it never ran again. And I feel, rational thought, she gotta go. Especially after my neighbor says, I go to work and I lock the doors, and my neighbor says, I keep seeing this woman climbing in and out your windows. Oh yeah, you got to go. So I kept her child for about a month until her family found out that I had the child and they came and got her. But I couldn't reverse the trend that was happening. So now, I'm all in. I go to work, I come home, I stop and get a couple, and especially on payday, I'm gonna pay the light bill, pay this bill. I'd stop at the gas station and squeeze every drop I can into the tank. Because I know once I start, it's on. One of my most painful memories, this might make me cry. Was terrorizing my kids at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning for their allowance, which I had given them a few hours earlier. But I'm out of money and I got to get one more. And that went on until they said, this is crazy, and they called somebody and they left. So when I hear people talk about defects or whatever, no, my kids were older. They get us out of here. He's crazy. So when I came home and saw that they were gone, oh man, ungrateful little bastards. And I sat there and I was sad for about, a few hours, and Let's get the party started again. So my house became the house. You come by 3 o'clock in the morning and you knock on the door comes open, it's on like popcorn. And the cars break down, and I got another car now. It breaks down, so both of them are broken. I know what's wrong with the cars. I can fix them. That's what I do. I fix things for a living. But it takes money to fix the cars, and I gotta use. So I use. Usually around 6, I think it was 6:15 in the morning, you see me come flying out the house because I got to catch that bus because I got to get to work. If I get to work, I get some money and I can continue on this cycle. So on this job that I have, this great job, I'm the union guy. And I come in the morning and I stroll around, King Tut. And I can spot them addicts. I didn't know why I was so good at spotting addicts. So I had arranged an intervention on you. Send them off to treatment. Now, right about now, you can hear the cavalry bugles because the disease had progressed to the point where I was looking terrible. I had an afro that wasn't symmetrical. I had this scraggly beard with holes in it. I was south of 150. By the time I got to treatment, I was weighing, I think it was 130. And they said, we think you got a problem. Oh yeah, my kids don't respect me, you don't pay me what I'm worth, I'm in deep denial. So they ask me to pee in the cup. And they go in the back room and they were there maybe 10 seconds. I think I blew that machine right off the table. Because I had gotten to a place that I said I would never be. I'm using it work. So after I make the rounds, I get a few dollars, I go off, I get some dope, I come back, I'm in the back seat of the car, I make some more rounds, I guess my eyes are like this, So they say either you go to treatment or you're out of here. Now the cavalry horns are blaring real loud. So I sit in treatment, and the first week they asked me every day, why are you here? And the first week I said, well, I have trouble getting to work on time. I know a little bit about denial. And I'm sitting in treatment one day, and this guy tells his story. He don't look like me. He don't come from where I come from. His parents are in the upper economic scale. And in this facility I'm in, they're talking stuff like, I hate my mother. She won't let me use the Rolls. I got to use the Jaguar. So I don't identify with these people. But I hear this kid tell my story. And he told my story and he kept going with his own. Because this was his 4th rehab, and he talked about the many institutions and jails he had been in, and all of a sudden the light went off. If I keep using, I'm going to have to go through all of this crap he went through. Right then I developed a desire to stay clean. But I'm one of them, I'm looking around to see if I see anybody like me here. I'm one of them real intelligent addicts. I hear the suggestions. I hear every one. But that's for you. I'm older and I'm smarter. I don't think I got to do all of that. But as I keep coming, I realize it doesn't matter who tells their story. The stories are always the same. We use, we lose. By the grace of God, if we end up in Narcotics Anonymous and are willing to follow a few simple suggestions, we go on to be happy, joyous, and free. That's the short version. But I don't listen very well. So I get out. I'm laying on the couch watching football. Meeting is right down the street. I pass it all the time I was going to get high. I used to pass that meeting place. I used to see them people out there smiling and hugging, and I'd cross the other side of the street because I know they ain't my people. And the first meeting I go to outside of treatment, I walk because it's right around the corner. And I go in there, and I heard somebody share this earlier. I see some people that I thought were dead. And I sit in the back. And the minute I sat in the back, I remembered the suggestion to sit up front, and I understood why. Because I was sitting back on inventory row. And they moving back and forth. One part of my story I'm going to go back to is when I went to treatment, the night before I went, they threw me a party. And we didn't finish all the drugs. So when I went to treatment with a sock full of drugs. And I went there and they let me sleep, and I wake up the next day and the disease grabs me by the throat and said, "You got drugs." They didn't find them. So I run to the bathroom because I'm going to flush them. And I stood there and I stood there and I stood there. I ain't really an addict, but I could not flush those drugs. So I went to treatment on October 6, 1988. I used those drugs on the 7th. My clean day is October 8th, 1988. And from that day to this, I had not used. Now, I get out, I make the meetings, I hear at every meeting what I'm supposed to do, and I'm watching and I'm looking, and I see the guy with no sponsor. Oh, he's picking up another white chip. I see the ones who don't work steps, they're picking up white chips. I see them people who just have to be in relationships, and they're taking them white chips out by the wheelbarrow. So for me, it's, well, just for today, I ain't gonna do that. Because when I heard that no relationships, who they talking to? Don't they know who I am? Yes, they knew who I was. I don't know who I am. So they suggest to get a sponsor. I better hurry up and get one. I get a sponsor. He was at my first meeting outside. He was hilarious. He was everything that I wasn't, because you know when you knew, ain't nothing funny. And I got a sponsor, so in case you ask me, I said, yeah, he over there. I don't want nobody telling me what to do. All my life I've rebelled against people telling me what to do. I've had this sponsor 26 years. He never told me what to do. Now, they suggested that if I'm looking for a sponsor, I need to read this pamphlet. So I get the pamphlet. And I'm going to say this, you know, they changed the sponsorship pamphlet. They didn't even ask me. They just changed it. And the old one said, find someone with a working knowledge of steps and traditions, is reasonably happy, and involved in service. That's what the old one said. So I interviewed. And the man I chose had all three going for him. When I asked him to sponsor me, he says, well, I'll talk to you after the meeting. And after the meeting, he came out of the back room with a mop and a bucket. And I said, oh man, I've messed up. Because I thought he was the head guy. I got the janitor. He explains to me that this is his service. Now, back in the day, after the meeting, you mopped the floors. You picked up the ashtrays. You folded them chairs. You put the room on back in order. Was no just walk away. So I got this sponsor, and I don't know what now. He says, call me. So I call him. And I get his answering machine. I leave a quick message, and I go on. You know, I don't know how many days I had, 50, 60 days. And man, later, fan, I ain't calling him. My phone rings. What's up, man? You ain't calling. I thought it was the voice of God. So he would tell me, I said, well, what meeting are you going to? He would tell me, and I said, okay, I'll see you there. And I'd go, he wouldn't show up. So I'm sitting in a meeting, and this is another thing that I had to find early in my recovery. All my divine inspirations have come in meetings.
Come on.
I'm sitting there and my skin is crawling. I don't feel too good. I don't know why. And the woman who's sharing says the steps will help you be comfortable with you.
That's right.
So I call up Mr. Sponsor. I said, I think I'm ready to work steps. He says, good. I've been waiting on you. And we began the process of recovery. The first 3 steps are the process of surrender. Now you fill in the blank. I don't care what you're surrendering to. It works very well on drugs. It works for cigarettes. I now have to use it for food. I had been here a while. I'm going to read this because I had been here a while, and of course, you know, I know a lot. I know almost everything. And I happened to be reading the basic text, and I read this. We felt that we could stop whenever we wanted to, despite all evidence to the contrary. Denial, substitution, rationalization, justification, distrust of others, guilt, embarrassment, dereliction, degradation, isolation, and loss of control are all results of this disease. Period. There's no time limit here. Because I was in a few of these last week. I'd like to let the newcomer know that the disease of addiction does not stop. It's going to look for a way around your little castle. I know you got the bridge up and the moat is around, but it's looking for a way in. Oh, he ain't using drugs. Let's get him with women. Let's get him with money. Let's get him with sex. Let's get him with food. And when you feel real bad about yourself, then the option comes, maybe I just use. While we're on this subject, I want to say something else about we must be vigilant. I was taught that when I go to the doctor, the first thing I say is, I'm a recovering addict. I can't mess with the pain pills. I've had some dental surgery, I've had some other surgery, and they go, you tell the doctor you're a recovering addict, he's still going to give you the pain pills. And usually I come home and they sit on my dresser, and they stay there till they start to talk. Oh, man, you're prescribed, you can take one. That's when they go in the toilet. My recovery is too valuable for me to gamble.
Come on.
Now, they promised me when I got here that I could be happy, joyous, and free. And I've been there. I like living there. I'm trying to the best of my ability to stay there. You know, I had a guy ask me, well, when do you know that you've surrendered? I said, did you read chapter 5? He said, yeah. I said, are you doing everything it says in there? He says, yeah. I said, well, then you surrendered.
Yes, sir.
What can I do? It's going to tell you. So then I go on and I do 4, and I get introduced to me. I'm not as great as I think, I'm not as bad as I think, but I got some issues. In 5, I talk about these issues and I find out we all got issues. Now what are you going to do about it? 6 and 7 brings me face to face with my disease. Character defects, shortcomings, don't matter. I don't need them. I want to get rid of them. But I find out step 5 in our basic text says this step is the key to freedom. That's the first line. So if you haven't done step 5, how do you expect to be free? And it ain't free from dope.
Come on.
It's free from me. I'm the dope who does dope. So, step 8, step 9, I clean up my past, and these steps allow me to walk down any street, not looking over my shoulder, not worrying about who's after me, because nobody's after me today. An amazing thing happened, you know, when I first walked to that meeting. I walked out of my house and I walked down the street and I saw some of my crew. They didn't even know who I was. Gained a few pounds, got a haircut, walking with my head up instead of down. They didn't know who I was. Because I was so worried about what was going to happen when they saw me. Nothing. One of the guys I used to run with, his brother came by. Now his brother was the dope man, or a dope man. And they wanted to use my basement. And they offered me a large sum of money to use my house. Well, I was intelligent to know that if I let them in my house, I was going to use. Because that's how they pay. So I said, no, I can't do that. And I closed the door. And I was shaking. But another revelation that I learned in here, whatever is troubling you, holding you hostage, you go to a meeting and you talk about it. And you find out half a dozen people have been there, done that, and got past it. But you can be unique as long as you want. Just sit there and don't say nothing. Pain is inevitable, suffering is an option. Suffer if you want. So I continued working the steps, and now where I got clean at, I'm going to say this, well, he ain't here today, he always gets pissed off when I say this, but when I got clean at, it was kind of customary that when you celebrated your first year, you had finished 12 steps and 12 traditions. And I was feeling less than, because I was somewhere around 10 or 11. And my sponsor said, man, don't worry about that. And shortly thereafter, I finished. Now, my sponsor was in service, and he kind of impressed upon me the need to be in service. But I'm an addict, and I'm an extremist, and I'm not going to tell you how many commitments I've had at the same time, because you know I was insane. But I've had at least one commitment since November of 1988, at least one. I believe that's the shortcut, to anchor myself in this program. I love the theme, NA, a new way of life. The only way of life. You know, recovery is like sex. If you ain't having fun, you ain't doing it right. I've been able to live beyond my wildest dreams. I got stuff going now. I worked for an airline for 37 years. For the first 22, whatever, I couldn't go nowhere. Because I couldn't leave the dope man. I can go anywhere in the world I want, but I can't leave the block. Now today, I go and come when I want. You know, at 3 years clean, my father died. And he lived a pretty good life. The following year, my mother died. Now, I was sad when my dad left, but oh man, mama. And my mother and I did not have a great relationship until I got clean. And we had rebuilt this relationship, and she was like, well, if something happened, I'd probably call my sponsor and my mama. And one of the moments that I will always remember is when we were in that church funeralizing her, and all of these people kept pouring in. And my brother came, he looked at me, he said, I don't know these people. Who are these people? It was the fellowship. So I try to repay that. And going to funerals ain't fun. And what has happened lately is, I don't know, I must have been to about 15 funerals in the last year. And only 2 of them were older than I am. Dose of gratitude. Because I got issues. I heard a friend of mine sharing earlier about he's got health issues. Yeah, well, welcome. I looked in the mirror last November, it was my birthday, and I realized how old I was. Ooh. I hadn't planned on living this long. Like the comedian said, if I had known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. But today I live beyond my wildest dreams.
Come on.
I live a real good life.
Yes, sir.
I have, I wanted to have friends. I'm looking out this room, man, I got a lot of friends. I wanted to be down. As long as I don't use, I'm down.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't quite prepared for this service thing because when I got here, I arrived, I slid into home plate, who's going to take care of me? But I found out I get taken care of when I help somebody else.
Yes, sir. Come on, Spon.
The other day I was dealing with one of my sponsees. I got a couple of them that got heads like concrete.
Yes, sir.
And the disease of addiction was smacking me around. You don't need to sponsor nobody. You can't help them people. And we had a tree day. And I looked around the room and I saw those sponsees that I had with over 20 years clean. And I said, well, maybe I've helped somebody. Because I can't help everybody. Some of y'all think like I used to think. The I Know brothers. Yeah. This is what I know. Before I sit down, I've been debating on whether I was gonna talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. Because we're talking about the NA way of life. The first tradition talks about unity. And it tells me that Narcotics Anonymous can live without me. I can't live without it. Second tradition takes me into group conscience. Now this fellowship is run primarily by group conscience. So if you're going against the conscience of the group, where is the unity? No, we don't give out unauthorized literature. And the problem is, I found, I think I got to the root of the problem. We got some old timers that are nursing a 40-year resentment. And what they're doing is feeding the newcomer. So the newcomer is running around ready to tear something up, but he don't have any clue about the history. So rather than talk about you, I'll talk to you. So I go to an individual and I try to talk to him, but he knows everything. And he knows the information that was given to him by his sponsor and his sponsor's sponsor. It's wrong. It's wrong. And we have a habit in this fellowship, us and them. There is no them. It's we. It's we. And if you don't like what we are doing, you go to your group, you go form a conscience, you move along to whatever area you have to deal with. Oh, the world is telling us what to do. Well, I've been to the world. I've been to the World Service Conference twice. I'm your delegate. And they're standing there begging us, tell us what to do. Now, all these levels of service, I don't know, we don't have any black helicopters. We don't have no armed troops. It starts at the home group with the group conscience. And if you're not participating in your home group, well, then you lose out. I got to meet some of those folks in World Service, and I admire them because they work real hard. And then I heard this rumor about their salary. They don't get no salary. So if you want to talk about what's going on at the region, maybe you need to go to the region and see. You know, we talk a lot about area circus. I like that one. And it is sometimes an area circus when you show up uninformed. And none of us was born knowing how to do anything. I wasn't born knowing how to put on a convention or do any other things that I do in Narcotics Anonymous. Somebody showed me. And somebody pointed me to the literature where it's written down what I'm supposed to do. So, I love the third paragraph where it says, we all face the same dilemma with or without drugs. And then at the end of that it says, it's available to us all. See, there's no lock on this. It's not given to the tall and good looking or the short and fat or the blonde or the black or the Mexican. It's available to us all. And when I first got to Georgia, I wasn't too sure. I don't know about you, but I've been to a meeting where nobody hugged me. Nobody greeted me. Nobody talked to me. And then they found out that I have a program. I was in a debate with a member of our fellowship who told me coffee was a violation of the seventh tradition. There were a lot of people that believed it. His sponsor told him that. So I took him to the literature and we read the pamphlet, what's the basket for? And it tells us we buy refreshments. He says, oh, I never saw that. I said, well, this pamphlet was here when I got here. That was one of the things my sponsor made me do.
Yes, sir.
He told me, read the basic text so you will recognize recovery when you hear it. And he told me to read those pamphlets. And he told me not to read from memory. And you'd be surprised how much I remember it come crunch time. I remember above all, I will not, must not, cannot use. Then I start looking for somebody to talk to. I don't want you to think that I got this, because I hear that, I got some sponsors, I got this. That's usually just before they leave here.
Come on.
And like I was sharing, I was in denial, that was last month. I did something that I never do, because I've learned that I get the thought, I share it with somebody, and then I do what I need to do. Sometimes I have to change my course of direction, because you tell me, no, that ain't gonna work. Did you think about trying it this way? And I've learned that over the years, that works best for me. You guys give me the shortcut on a regular basis. But I kind of knew that what I was doing was a little off the edge, So I didn't tell nobody. I did it. Man, I didn't sleep well. I was in turmoil. Finally, I just had to fess up. I had already done it by then, but I had to fess up. And I went back to some peace and serenity in my life. I probably shouldn't have done what I did, but I'm not going to lose any clean time over it. I'm not going to use over it. I bought another motorcycle. I am obsessive and compulsive in ways that you wouldn't understand. But I'm working on it. Some of my friends in Narcotics Anonymous are some of the sickest people I've ever met. But they're not as sick as they were yesterday. We do get better. We do recover. There was a guy I used to love and admire. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know where he is. But when he closed, he always closed with, if you want to be something you've never been before, be yourself. God bless you.